we could not complete. Okay, now students, let's get started. We'll do a quick recap of what we did yesterday and then move forward from there. So yesterday we started off with the pros and cons of different economic systems, right? So we already know that there are three types of economic systems: free market, which is also known as market economy, then there's mixed economy, and then there is command economy, which we also call planned economy, right? Now, we started our discussion yesterday with the pros and cons of different economic systems. The first one that we discussed was free market, right? Now, quick recap of the pros and cons of free market. So we said that in free market, most resources are owned by the private sector, and therefore it's the private sector that will decide what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. Now, given the objective of private sector is to maximize profit, so they look for opportunities that can give them the highest return. So everything is about money making in the free market, right? Because private sector is motivated by profit, they are profit driven, so they will look for things that give them higher returns, right? But in the process, what happens that multiple firms will set up to provide the same product, right? So it's not that there will be only one firm. In some markets, there can be one firm, but in majority, just give me a minute. I have to, just give me a second. Sorry for the interruption. Okay, sorry about the interruption. Okay, so students, we were talking about that in free market, it's the private sector that gets to decide what to produce, how to produce. They're profit driven, so they look for higher returning opportunities, which yield them higher profits. But in the process, what happens that multiple firms will set up to provide the same product or the same service, right? So as I was giving you the example of online teaching, now there are multiple platforms in different countries. And there is a big online teaching platform based in Saudi Arabia, in Pakistan, couple in China, couple in India, and so on, right? Now, when this happens, and this happens in majority of the markets, not in all markets, this is something that you have to really understand. Not in every market you will see that amount of competition, right? But in majority, yes, you will. Especially the basic products, the basic commodities, consumer goods, consumer services. And then with that, consumers get more variety of the goods, so they can choose between different products, right? And with more competition, what happens that businesses have to stay ahead of their competition. And in that, they are very much focused on reducing their prices and providing better quality products, right? So again, this benefits whom? This benefits consumers. So when there's more competition, there are more variety of goods, there are lower prices and better quality. Who is benefiting? The consumer. Then another thing that we discussed with examples yesterday, that private sector is always on the outlook of opportunities, right? So wherever there's a market gap, wherever they see an opportunity, they are very quick to respond to it, unlike the government sector. So simplest example that I gave you yesterday, that now since things are changing, especially after COVID, we learned that people can work from home, people can study from home, people can do a lot of things from home, right? Now, that's why we see a lot of companies setting up where they're providing software solutions, online education solutions, and other tech solutions to companies and businesses. So that clearly shows that private sector is responsive to changes in the market needs. Then another thing that happens, this is kind of linked to the second point, that prices, when there's more competition, firms have to be efficient. Efficient. Now, let me tell you a little bit about efficiency. We'll talk more about this in A2 economics, but efficiency means simply, as we use the word efficiency in our daily lives, it means to minimize cost. How do you minimize cost? You make better use of the resources, right? You make better use of the resources. Just a quick example, and then you can perhaps better understand this point. If people, if you can hold people accountable. So let's say if you can check what people are doing at home, whether they're working or they're not working, then don't you think it's better to let them work from home, because then you will not be paying for the electricity in your office, you will perhaps not be paying for rent, you will not be paying for a lot of other expenses that you otherwise had to, right? So this is making better use of resources, right? And all the companies, all the telecommunication industries in Pakistan, businesses, Zong, majority of those, Jazz and all these, they have allowed, they have given the option of their option to their employees, if they want to, even the COVID is now almost gone, that if they want to work from home, they can do that, right? So that clearly shows that they have learned how things are changing now. Right, less wastage, exactly. How you're using your resources, less wastage, using more advanced methods of production and all that stuff. Very good, excellent, that's correct. Okay, students, are you getting me? Now on the con side, we discussed that free market, since it's profit driven, they will only focus on things that are profitable, and if they have to produce a demerit good, they will not mind doing that. They produce tobacco, they produce alcohol. We discussed a very interesting story yesterday, that how even some harmful drugs are now in the process of being legalized. And this is not, this could not have been possible without the lobbying, without the lobbying. Do you understand the word lobbying? That when a certain group, advocate for certain things. So these private businesses who lobby to the government to make it legalized, because then it means that they make more profit, right? Then another problem with the free market, that is that there's no government intervention. So government is not very actively looking for, problematic areas. So government would not be very active in making rules and regulations which make sure that consumers do not get exploited. So monopoly, we discussed yesterday, is a market situation where there's one dominant firm, and that one dominant firm gets to control or sell, gets to control is a better word. So they get to control the market, and whatever prices they're charging for their products, consumers have to pay because they don't have any other option. Then, since there is no active government intervention in the free market, consumers can be exploited and workers can be exploited in different situations. That's a disadvantage. And then another very major disadvantage of free market, that private sector will never provide education and healthcare, which are technically basic human rights, to people who cannot afford for it, right? Who cannot pay for it, right? So that's another disadvantage. Now, after this discussion, I will ask you if you have any other, firstly, comments, questions, queries, anything you want to add to the list. This is not a comprehensive list, right? So if anything that's coming to your mind related to pros and cons. Right. Okay. If in case you do share, right? Okay. Okay. Then coming to the command economy, students, right? Command economy, I said, is complete opposite of free market. Command economy, in command economy, most resources are owned by the government, and therefore government is in charge to decide the questions like what to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce. We already know that government is not a profit-making entity, and therefore government wants to provide social welfare, right? Then the question of how to produce, government will want to hire as many people as much they can, because again, they are not profit-making entities. And the last question was that how the goods produced will be distributed. So goods are distributed on the basis of need rather than on the basis of affordability. We already know this, right? Now, what's the con? And another thing that I said yesterday, that you have to just flip, you just have to change whatever was pro in the free market would become a con in the command economy, because the mindset with which the private and the government sector operate are completely different, right? So let's dive into this. So there is limited competition, and therefore consumers do not have much choice of goods slash services to choose between. So let me give you an example for this. Think about this. in command economy, it's not that the government will set up multiple firms that are producing the same product. Let's try to understand this. Students, think about this. So when the government is in charge of producing any product, and you must have observed in your own countries as well, that they have only one firm that is producing that product. So electricity in Pakistan is produced by one firm. There's only one railway services, right? There's one major steel mill owned by the government of Pakistan, and so on and so forth. Similarly, if the government also starts producing consumer goods like clothes, shoes, I don't know, laptops, phones, you will see one firm, government firm, produces a certain product which significantly reduces consumer's choice. Students, are you following me or not? Right now, think about this. Wouldn't it be very sad to know that your country has only one brand of clothes? Wouldn't it be very sad for you to know that the phones that you buy or the laptops that you buy, there's only one brand, right? So I mean, that is obviously not a very exciting situation to be in, but we have seen in the past, the world has seen in the past, that where there was command economy, this thing has happened, right? So China was, not very recently, but relatively recently, China has been a command economy. North Korea is a command economy, right? So Russia was a command economy, but now they are transitioning towards more mixed economies, right? Right, exactly, right? So what they do, that these firms make standardized, because their objective is not to provide the best product, or their objective would not be to provide the most innovative product. So that one firm of government that is producing a certain product would just provide to the basic extent. Are you getting me? Make standardized products which do not account for different needs. Does it make sense? Easy? We good on this? Okay. Since government is not a profit-making entity, it will not be much concerned about minimizing cost, right? About minimizing cost and making best possible use of resources. So let me give you another example. So Pakistan International Airlines, right? PIA. So as per a lot of researches, as per a lot of studies, it has shown that PIA is overstaffed. What overstaffed means is that, so forgive me, obviously I gave a lot of examples related to Pakistan because I've spent my entire life over here. So but you can relate to it and see how it happens in most of because these examples are very similar to what happens in other countries as well. So PIA is overstaffed. This means that they have way more employees than they should, right? And that shows inefficiency. But how this overstaffing happens, let me explain you. So people who are in charge of hiring, they hire people not because there's need in the company, but because they want any of their friends, family members, blah, 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 to be hired. Are you getting me? So with overstaffing, what happens, obviously it's inefficient. You're paying additional cost where you need one person, you have perhaps hired 2 or 3 people, then that means wastage of resources. And when this happens, what happens to the company? It goes in loss. Are you getting? The company goes in a loss, obviously, because unnecessarily your costs are high, the revenue is not that much, then it goes into loss. And then who pays for these losses? Who pays for these losses? Right? Students, did you get this or not? Right? So think about this. The question is it illegal to hire people when there is no need? Zuhan, no, you can't use the word illegal because firstly, who is determining the need, right? But I mean, it's not illegal. But the thing is, I mean, that's definitely very inefficient management. And as per the company policies, it can be punishable as per the company policies. The least that the company can do is to, fire you. But then everyone is involved in a government organization, so that doesn't happen. But in a private company, just happens. So giving you a simple example, if I'm working at Mega Lecture and if I make a decision that was outrightly stupid, right? Forgive my wording. So then obviously Mega Lecture would not be fine with me doing that. They might give me a warning, and depending upon the severity of the issue, they might terminate my employment. So that happens. So that's the way. But obviously not a legal action in the sense that they can't take me to the court or blah 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 blah. Right? Are you getting me? So that's how it happens. Okay. So think about this. Now, this is a very important point that I've written over here. PIE is overstaffed. So when there's overstaffing, that obviously is a major reason for the loss, because costs are higher than what it should be. Then they make a loss, and when they make a loss, now since it is a government organization who pays for the losses, every year the government budget has some amount to finance the deficit, to finance the loss that they have made. So if they have more cost compared to the revenue that they're making, it's a loss. So the government has to inject money constantly into the loss-making entity just to keep it alive, artificially alive, I would say, right? And whose money is it? It's my money. It's our people's money who is going to waste. Is it making sense? I mean, you have to clear the CSS. You have to take the CSS exam. Okay, is this making sense, students? Any confusion? Okay, what else? So there's limited variety, lack of efficiency, right? Loss making, businesses. What else? What else? Any other disadvantage of command economy coming to my mind? Right? Right? Other thing that's kind of linked. We have already talked about it. Right. Is limited or no innovation. Because there are no profit incentives. Students, are you following? So think about this. Why I'm always saying that profit is the reason behind innovation and all that stuff. Because think about this. No matter what you say, Facebook came into play and it has become such a big platform. Amazon, Tesla, I mean, the list goes on and on and on, right? Because at the end of the day, there was this incentive that, I mean, just imagine the scale that you can operate on, right? Where one brand is known across the globe, right? Almost by everyone. So what I'm trying to say that it's basically the profit incentive that drives employees, like even talking about human nature, because at the end of the day, what is the basic block of an organization? A human being, right? Whether that be in the form of a business entrepreneur, business person, entrepreneur, managers, employees, blah, 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 right? So that what drives them? It's the financial incentive. So since there's no financial incentive with the government, and another thing that the government knows, that the government can always tax people. Government can always tax people, more tax to cover their expenses. So therefore, they don't need to be profit driven and so on. And that really limits the innovation in a command economy. Are you getting me? Is it making sense? Right? Okay. Now, what are the pros? Coming to the pros, it's not that command economy only has cons, there are some pros as well. So let's discuss those. There are relatively equality between the citizens' living standards. Now, this is where it becomes interesting, right? So, on one hand, in our world right now, the world that we live in, there are people who are billionaires, who are like literally billionaires, right? And there are people who do not have even the food to keep them alive, right? Now, I'm not saying take the money away from the billionaires and give it all to the poor, right? But are you getting me? There has been a lot of evidence gathered, especially recently, to show that the income inequality and the wealth inequality in the world is increasing at enormous rates, right? Do you guys follow that World Economic Forum? How many of you follow that? That's a very excellent platform. And they also have a Instagram. That's where I mainly follow them. They also have an Instagram account. Just go and, you'll find it. So they share very short videos about, you know, what is happening in the world and blah, 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 and all these things, right? So you'll find very interesting things on climate, income, and all that stuff, right? Do follow this. Okay. Now, yesterday I was also watching, that's a discussion for some other time. Okay. So are you getting me? So there is relatively more equality between the citizens' living standards because government is providing standard to everyone. Education, healthcare, housing, consumer products, and right? Is it making sense? So what happens? The good thing about one major advantage in the command economy is that the government makes sure that everyone gets similar products, right? So the living standards are very, you know, there is no disparity in the living standards of these citizens because everyone is getting access to basic education, like, you know, the standardized education that is available, standardized healthcare, housing, consumer products, and so on, right? So this is not a thing in free market. In fact, let me quickly write this down, right? There are uh, quality in free market, hence privileged people have access to better education, healthcare, and finance. Therefore, they are more likely to create and wealth for themselves in the future. Okay, does it make sense? Easy, we're good on this. Any confusion? Merit and public goods are provided. Absolutely, absolutely, right? Is it making sense? So there's more provision of public and merit goods, as we discussed. Very nice, excellent. What else, students? Right? Yeah. Right. So exactly, more provision of public and merit goods. Restrictions or complete prohibition on production of demerit goods, right? So that depends, right? So I'm not saying that something will happen for sure or something will not happen, right? But we do know that the government is about social welfare. So the government will want to stop any harmful products being produced or things like that, right? And government would focus on things that are more beneficial and more needed by the citizens, like public goods and merit goods, right? Is it making sense? Okay, what else? Subsidies are given, exactly. But Zohan, in this case, subsidy point is more relevant to mixed economy. Why so? Let me explain you. Because in the case of subsidies, subsidies are financial payments. For those who don't know, subsidies are financial payment, but I'm sure you must have heard the word. Subsidies are financial payment that government gives to producers. Now, these are not government producers. These are private producers, private businesses. Because if there is already a government organization, then they are just taking the money, as I was giving you the example of PIA. So they can just ask for the money, right? Whatever loss the company is making, it is the government's responsibility to provide for it. Are you getting me? So they don't need small amounts in the form of subsidies, right? So mixed economy, where it's presence of both public and private sectors that we're just about to start, there to promote certain sectors, the government provides subsidies. In command economy, it's like just of direct funding to the companies. Did you get this one? Is it making sense? So the amount that the government gives to PIA or Pakistan Railways right? When they make a loss or something of the sort, that's not called a subsidy. That's more of a, more injection or investment, right? We good? Okay, perfect. So, okay, what else comes to your mind? Right? So there's relatively more equality between the citizens' living standards because the government is providing standardized products to everyone, including education, healthcare, blah, blah, blah. There's more provision of public and merit goods and restrictions or complete prohibition on production of demerit goods, right? What else? Right? Uh, Local firms are protected. Okay, another thing that goes hand in hand. Local firms are protected from foreign competition. Now think about this. When there is a command economy, right? So you would know North Korea doesn't trade with other countries, partially because of the fact that they have trade sanctions. You know what trade sanctions are? Trade sanctions are restrictions. So you can't, trade. No other country would be interested in trading with you, right? But that is because of their nuclear weapons. The nuclear weapons that they're developing, United Nations countries have, made a trade embargo, placed a trade embargo against North Korea, which means that no country is allowed to trade with them, right? But the thing is that when it's a command economy and government owns most resources, so government wants to make sure that, government is the one producing, providing everything and all that stuff. So you're not even opening your country for international trade. So there will be no international trade and all that stuff. But the good aspect to it, to some extent, I don't support this, but local firms are protected from foreign competition, right? What that does that mean? Now think about this. If we take the example of any country, UAE, Pakistan, India, China, so they have their own firms, right? Pakistani or Indian or whatever Chinese firms they have for a product, let's say cars or whatever it is. But they also have competition coming from foreign countries. So Japanese cars are really popular in Pakistan, American cars are popular, and similarly so on. So when foreign companies are exporting to your country, this means that the locals will not buy the local product, and that affects your national income. Students, are you getting me? Right? I know a lot of these concepts are more complicated, and we will be studying all of these concepts later, but I'm just giving you a quick idea. So that's why you must have heard the slogan, be Pakistani, buy Pakistani, be Indian, buy Indian, right? Things like that, right? Because the government wants to promote their local businesses and to generate employment in the country. Uh, right. Obviously, it will definitely, right? Local firms are protected from foreign competition. Got it, students? Right? Which results in higher local employment. You good on this? Okay. Any confusion? Okay. Now, this being said, so now you must have observed that whatever was a pro in free market, like availability of like variety of goods, more efficiency, cost minimization, and all that stuff. So that became a con over here in the command economy. And similarly, whatever was a con in the free market, that it doesn't provide for the people who are less privileged, always focusing on, profitable things and producing demerit goods and, so on and so forth, that became the pro of the command economy, right? Right. I mean, yeah, it can be, Zuhan, but think about this. At the end of the day, it's economics, right? So you can write this down, but we are more interested in economics. We're more interested in knowing the economic aspects of things rather than political or, international relations, right? That comes in the realm of international relations and politics and so on. Okay, now students will move forward, right? And we will talk about the third and the last type of economic system, that mixed economy. Okay. Now, in mixed economy, it's more of a balanced approach, right? As we have already discussed before as well, there's presence of both public and private sector. Most countries in the world is a mixed economy. Most countries in the world are mixed economy. Okay. Now, if we talk about the pro, so you will do see choice compared to, right, command economy, right? So you will see more choice in mixed economy compared to command economy, because there is absolutely no choice in command economy. In mixed economy, there will always be, private sector that is taking more and more, of the role in producing goods and services. So simple example of that would be obviously better quality goods, right? Let me write this down first. More affordable um, products, right? Okay, what else, right? So think about this. So in mixed economy, since there is private sector, as we know, so private sector would be focusing on producing better quality and more affordable products, because they know if they have to survive, they have to be better than the competition, right? Right. So government provides subsidies. So subsidies, by now you would have gotten a better idea that subsidies are financial payments. So whenever government thinks that there is an important thing that needs to be provided to the consumers, and let's say right now the price is not very affordable, an important product that needs to be available to the consumers, and right now the price is not very affordable, then government provides financial payments to producers, subsidies, which reduces the price of the product, right? So sometimes government give agricultural subsidies, sometimes government gives subsidies on other things like education, healthcare, right? And things like that. uh, Food, education, right? Healthcare. So these are some of the important areas where the government would want to give subsidies, because obviously they are directly affecting the quality of life in a country. So government would be interested, right? Okay. Then another advantage is there is more balance of public and private goods. Yes or no? Compared to other economic systems, there is greater balance of public and private goods, as private sector produces private goods and public sector produces public goods. Public goods. Okay. Then another thing that we discussed about, right? More regulation. Another advantage of mixed economy students, more regulation to ensure that individuals' rights are not infringed by other individuals or businesses, right? Are you getting me? So what do we mean by that? So when there's more regulation, as I was giving you the example, then government is there to make sure that a monopoly doesn't exploit consumers, or a private business doesn't exploit its workers by giving them very low wages, right? And we do know that there's legal minimum wage in every country, just to make sure that consumers are getting the due right that they deserve. Right, there are rules around it. There will still be exploitation. We can't say that there will be absolutely none, but at least there's a process around it. You can take it to the court. There is a law that exists that can protect you and things like that, right? Right. Okay, perfect. Now coming to the con part. Now think about this. Where regulation can be a pro, it can also be a con. Now students, listen to this carefully. Now a lot of private businesses, when you ask them, their managers and their owners, they say that excessive regulation is affecting our country, and that's why we are not getting foreign investment and so on. Because one way of looking at this is that, let's say, if the laws are really relaxed, if business laws are really relaxed in, let's say, China compared to India and Pakistan, then we can expect more investment going in China compared to other two countries, and vice versa. So what I'm trying to say here is that, to some extent, excessive regulation can be harmful for businesses, because it creates disincentives for businesses to invest. Are you getting me? Because nowadays the world is a global economy. So an Indian or a Chinese or a Pakistani is not only restricted to their own home country. Technically, they can go and make investment in a foreign business, foreign countries as well. So Pakistani can invest and start a business in UK, Canada, Australia, right? And all that places. So if the laws are not very business friendly, as we say. If the regulations are not very business friendly, then a lot of businesses would want to take their investment abroad, which is obviously harmful, which is obviously a disadvantage, because you will lose jobs and you will lose the output that would have been produced in Pakistan and the development that our country would have faced, right? How many of you got this? Therefore, there can be outward flow of investment costing lose potential jobs, potential output and development, right? Are you getting me? So excessive regulation is always harmful, right? Okay, that's a disadvantage. Very good. What else? In mixed economy, any other disadvantage that comes to your mind, right? There can be duplication of resources. Students, what Zohan was referring to yesterday, there can be duplication. So think about this. So one way that economists look at it is that why there are two sectors that are producing same product, right? So if there is public education and then simultaneously there's private education, I mean, wouldn't it be better that you make few bigger organizations that cater to all type of students rather than having multiple firms that are producing same things, right? So with public sector producing one thing and also private sector doing it, sometimes there can be duplication of resources, right? Which is inefficient, right? Does it make sense? So this is something. Then another thing that you can say, as I was giving the example for government organizations can be, you know, can be creating, it's kind of linked to the first part, but all I wanted to say that sometimes government organizations are restricting the growth of the private sector, right? Or let me put it down like this. What do I mean by that? So think about this. So it was quite some time after which Pakistan's government allowed private airlines to set up. It was quite some time. It's still quite of a recent concept in Pakistan. Don't know about other countries. So for domestic flights, it's only the PA. It was only the PAA that used to be the local courier, local airline service. Now they obviously deregulated, and we'll talk about this later in the syllabus, which is very interesting, that how deregulation and privatization takes place. You would know privatization is when a government organization is sold to a private business, or let's say other private businesses are allowed to set up in that industry, right? Now with privatization, all these things that has improved, but before that it was only the PAA that was inefficient, and that was the only local carrier in Pakistan, right? So that is the reason why I said that government organizations sometimes might be restricting the growth of the private sector, right? We good on this? Okay, so students, will stop here for today, and then in the class that we will have on Monday, we'll do some past paper questions of this, so that as we discuss, so that we get to absorb everything. So obviously this is good, but unless we apply the knowledge in the past paper questions form, we will not get a good idea of how to solve questions, and I'll also explain you how the level marking works, right? We good? So wish you a good weekend, right? Have some good rest, Khizr, as we discussed, right? So we can do that, and I'll see you on Monday then, right, students?